There it is. Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming. This is a very important event for us, and we are so glad that you are coming to listen and hear and to try to organize. We have a lot of information that we're giving to you, and we do apologize about so many topics happening, but these are all happening right now in our neighborhood, and so it's essential that we organize and understand what's going on. So if you come here, we are going to be basically covering several things. One is the history of exploitation, land use, closed streets, tax liens, and land trusts. And so you might be here for one particular issue, but it's also important for you to understand what else is going around in your neighborhood, because everything that we're going to be talking about will be affecting not only people in this neighborhood, but also in New York City. We will be doing the presentations. We should be finished within an hour, where each speaker will be speaking and talking about a particular topic. Then we're going to open it up for a Q&A so that people can ask questions of the presenters. However, we're asking for you to please stay on topic. Ask the questions, because this is about information and sharing information. I know a lot of people might have philosophical and political positions that they want to share, but we really, because our time is limited here, we really want you to be focused and ask questions that the presenters can answer for you, and also could be a benefit to everyone else. So, if you want to go to the next page. Oh, thank you. You want to help us do some other things too? We could always use help. Yes, if you could just now turn off your phone and just put it on vibrate, and that way it's not going to disturb the crowd. The people are there's still people coming in. I'm really happy that people are coming despite the rain. Right. So we're going to go, now that's information that we are not going to really discuss, but it's information about a particular issue that's happening in our neighborhood, and I just want that to be noted, that that's information about something, but we're not going to be discussing it too much. So let's go ahead and go to the next page. Okay. And this speaker is Nkululeko. I know I said that wrong. But he loves me anyway. And you know, what it is that before we can talk about what's happening now, it's important for us to see history and learn how did we get here? Because this is not what's happening in our communities has happened before, over and over and over again. And so this gentleman is going to be talking about the historical perspective of how we have gotten here and what has happened in the past. And he's going to take us way back into the 1600s, and then bring us forward into the present time. So bear with him, and thank you. Is your mic working?
Good evening. Uhuru means freedom, family. My name is Nkululeko, and I like to start with a chant. I'm going to say touch one, and you say touch all. Is that all right? Yeah. I'm going to say touch one, touch one, I shave. Because we need to be organized. We need solidarity. And we need to collectively organize to address our common concerns. My name is Nkululeko, and I'm a member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. Uhuru means freedom, and we know and understand that freedom should be on the minds of our people 24/7. The slogan of our organization is that self-determination is the highest expression of democracy. So if you don't have self-determination, you don't have a democracy. If you don't have community control over your schools, you don't have a democracy. If you don't have community control over your housing, then you don't have a democracy. And we're organizing for our people to have community control over every aspect of our community, especially our politicians, right? We want our politicians, our elected officials to represent us, the people, and not special interest groups, not merchants, not real estate developers. Because I want to tell you, I want to remind you all about the first set of merchants that came to this land and who was displaced as a result of it. In the 1600s, it was the Dutch that came to this place that we know as Brooklyn, New York. They named it New Amsterdam. In the 1600s, a group of people lived here named the Lenape people. They had their own civilization. They had their own settlements where they lived and had their families. But they were displaced due to colonialism, due to Dutch colonialism in the 1600s. A group of merchants and investors had other plans for this land that undermined the existence of the ability of the Lenape people to control their homes. And then in 1625, the Dutch brought enslaved Africans here to New York, to Brooklyn, to be the laboring class, to build the infrastructure, to build the wealth of their colony, of what would later become New York, what would later become America. It's the labor of African people, it's the death of this land that created what we know today as Brooklyn. I think it's very important for us to remember that and see how that relates to what's going on right now today. Because we have always, colonized people have always resisted colonialism. And we've always fought to control our resources, control our neighborhood, control our communities. But that was undermined due to other people's interests, due to the interest of investors. After the Civil War, during the Reconstruction, Black independent communities were popping up all throughout the states. And in an attempt for us to regain some type of self-determination, community control over our own communities, over our own destinies, over our own livelihoods. But even after the Civil War, even after the emancipation of the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, the abolishment of slavery, African people still struggle to control their communities and set up free societies. Even right here in Brooklyn, we have Weeksville Society, like right down the block, which is an independent Black community that was also subject to displacement and ethnic cleansing due to urban renewal, which saw the building of a lot of these housing developments that we see, Kingsborough being one of them, which was supposed to provide a home for white workers, immigrant workers, to come that was new here to the United States to provide a working class for the state. So, but that came at the expense of independent Black communities like Weeksville. And then in the 50s and 60s, we have the white flight. We have a lot of white people leaving the city and running to the suburbs due to divestment. A lot of money was being taken away from the community. The banks pretty much withdrew all of their money and started investing in the suburbs. And that gave rise to the Black population here in Brooklyn as well. So now, here we have in Crown Heights, a lot of African Americans and Caribbean Africans came to America seeking the American dream. And they brought homes here in Crown Heights. And they also was fighting for self-determination to control their communities. That's how we was able to establish Mega Evans down the block, which was built with the intentions of being a community, truly a community university, a university that was controlled by the people for the interest of the people, not for the interest of real estate developers or Uber, or private developers. So there's an attack on genuine black leadership, all about genuine black leadership that defended the democratic rights of black people to have self-determination by either imprisoned or murdered by the US government. And so now we have someone that comes in the face of black people, that looks like black people, but however they don't represent the interests of the black community at all. They represent the interests of real estate developers and merchants, hence the reason why we have this meeting today to oppose Crystal Hudson's role as city council, because we understand that she doesn't represent the interests of the people, she represents the interests of real estate developers, merchants, and capitalists at the expense of the black community. So she's pushing for affordable housing. She wants to be the speaker of city council. And right now, the real estate sector of the economy is helping her do that, pretty much funding her campaign. She comes in the name of the people, but she doesn't represent the interests of the people. She's supporting luxury towers all throughout this area. I'm sure a lot of you see it. And that's pushing, ultimately, the community that lived here, the black residents that lived in this community for generations, is pushing them out. Making it hard for them to be able to afford or even raise families in this area. So we have to be very knowledgeable and conscious of who our elected officials represent. Do they represent us, or do they represent corporate interests at our expense? And we inside the Yehuda movement know and understand that Crystal Hudson does not represent the people. She represents real estate interests. She has sided against the local community with regards to open streets. That's anti-community within itself. Where are our children going to play if not on their own block? She gets countless thousands of dollars, dirty money contributions for her elections, and we encourage everyone to follow the money. Crystal Hudson states that she's catering. She says it herself. She's catering to the population who wants to come into our community, not the people who already live here. So we inside the Yehuda movement are calling on everyone in this room to hold your local elected officials accountable to represent the interests of the people and not corporate interests. Thank you. Uhuru.
I want to thank you for that. And now that we have some historical perspective, we are going to start tackling some of the programs and policies that have been going on for over a century, that has been exploiting and removing the wealth of African Americans, Afro-Caribbean people, underneath the guise of tax liens. And right now, I don't know how many people are aware of, but there's a tax lien sale about to happen on June 3rd, in which over 10,000 one- and three-family homes are going to be on auction, and over 22,000 properties are going to be sold to a private trust. So, but I'm not going to take away all the information. I'm going to let you, I'm going to introduce you to Yolande Nicholson. Okay, Yolande, take it away.
Hi. Good evening. Nice to see everybody and meet everybody. The tax lien sale, as many of you may not know, about 2 weeks ago we did a book talk regarding generally the excessive taxation of African Americans since Reconstruction across the country, which was revealed in the finding of a book called The Black Tax, the Theft, Exploitation of African Americans. I implore everybody to read it. Tying that into New York City, it was surprising to find that the New York City tax lien sale fits right into, and maybe the most supersized is the word. Everybody remember when we used to start supersizing drinks and supersize of tax lien sales. So, in the time that we have, unpaid unpaid real estate tax bills, water bills, HPD charges, DOB, Department of Buildings charges, violations you may get for sidewalks. After a year, they become tax liens on the law. And they are eligible, of course, to be foreclosed on by the city, But what the city did since 1996 under then Mayor Giuliani was created by law a specialized mechanism where the liens are pooled into one lump sum and sold into what's called a trust, a special trust, an investment trust that's created to buy the liens from the city at 70 cents on the dollar. So if you imagine the 10,000 that Alicia mentioned, if each lien is worth $10, I'm just making up numbers, the city's getting 70,000 cash right away. And selling it into the trust. And all the cities, is it mine?
Change up mic.
Mine is okay? You can hear me? Okay.
Where's the sound man? What are you doing?
Another mic?
So once the liens go into the trust, the property owner's relationship with the city ends. And this is happening, it was scheduled to happen May 20th, it was moved, thank you, to June 2nd. And once that happens, the private investor and investment relationship parties who administer the trust, who run the trust, are imbued or vested with all the powers of the city to collect 18% interest compounded daily. Well, first let's talk, the minute a lien goes into the trust, there's a $500 surcharge per lien. I see you shaking your head. It's appalling. So just imagine that's just icing on the top of the supersizing. And then an 18% surcharge plus the service of fees compounded daily. And so, and then the trust itself, after a period of time, a year or two at its discretion, but I think initially it has to hold for a year, can begin foreclosure proceedings against the property owner to recover those additional charges. So historically, what we found and what we see especially now is that African Americans and Caribbean families and property owners across New York City, and Brooklyn especially, but to some extent, Latino families are the highest on the list. 65% of the families on the list since February, and currently are in Brownsville, East New York, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Canarsie, Flatbush, East Flatbush, and Sunset Park. But what's more shocking is that a significant number, approximately 50% of the properties on the list are there only for water liens. So we've been doing these things to bring to the attention that people should understand that once you go into this trust, your opportunity to negotiate with the Department of Finance, to work out a payment plan, ends. The only way you can get your property back is to pay 100% of the lien amount. Otherwise, it will go into foreclosure, and when it goes into foreclosure, it's also 100% of the. Well, especially if you have equity in the home, because what Professor Andrew Call found in his research is that this tax lien investor structure is most attractive in communities and municipalities where there's a lot of equity in the home and the families are struggling. And who has more equity in their homes historically is African Americans and people of African descent. And why? Because, as the young man spoke earlier, we had to buy our homes without support from the government. We have a lot of equity in our homes. And so the tax lien sale, and it's also, we're finding that the tax lien sales, the 65% of the homeowners in the communities correlate directly to where we've been upzoned in Brooklyn, Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy, upzoned, the neighborhoods that you're talking about. So for those of you here who have a neighbor who have not received a notice, received a notice, check your water bill list. It's an NYC, New York City DOF's website. You can check the address. There are ways to stay off the sale by entering into a payment plan. Alicia will talk a little bit more about this later, because they're not quite easy to do, and she's had the experience. But if you ask the Department of Finance and the city, they will say that, you know, senior citizens are exempt to some extent. Veterans are exempt to some extent. But what she's found and what we've heard is that it's not easy for you to even enter into a payment plan. And for those who can enter into a payment plan, it's a sizable down payment, it's a sizable monthly payment. Chances are it tips your budget monthly, and you'll be back in the situation again. One of the things I wanted to do in the time that I have is, you know, why are we here? Because, as he said, African Americans, and I say that to mean all of us who are of Afro descent, all of us who are black, have always fought colonialism, have always fought the right to not be without a home and property. And what we've learned and what we continue to experience is that it is always, always, always taken from us systemically through governmental programs. Now, the other thing I want to implore is that this is not an isolated situation. The very same neighborhoods where this is happening, I do a lot of foreclosure defense work. I've been doing that for over 15 years. This young lady here knows that I've been doing deed and equity theft work. The exact neighborhoods where this is happening now, post the pandemic, are the exact neighborhoods that were redlined post post-World War II, are the exact neighborhoods that were targeted for subprime lending, are the exact neighborhoods that continue to experience high foreclosure rates every Thursday, if you look at what's happening in Brooklyn, and they are the exact same neighborhoods that are now being what's called gentrified, which I like to call displacement. The correct term for that is a program to displace people of African descent and those who love them, because I know that there are a lot of you in this room who love us as well, and you will come with us, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I did want to mention was that in the packet on page 5, there are the different types of programs that are being offered for people who meet them. There's certain requirements. I just wanted you to look at the SCREE, the senior citizen. These are people who are over 65, veterans, and the disabled. Even though those programs are technically closed, right, as of March 15th, 2/25, I did get confirmation today, after a week of inquiries by the city council person, Rita Joseph's staff, that those programs are open only for people who have tax liens or on that tax lien sale. So you need to get the information out to your neighbors. If they're 65 or older, or if they're a veteran, or if they are disabled, they could apply for this program, even though on the website it's going to say that the program is closed. They're claiming that they're opening it up only for people who are on this lien list. Now, shouldn't that be public knowledge? Yeah. Why would it take me a week to get that information? Literally going behind the back channel, having elected officials, employers, go through the back channel, and it took a week. Because when we go to the finance department, they tell us, oh, the program's closed. You can't apply. There's nothing about this. And this is why this is so insidious. You go to the finance department and they tell you, oh, don't worry, you know, you could get, even if it's sold, you can still get, you know, your property back from the trust. But they don't tell them about the 18% daily interest. They don't tell them about the fees. They don't tell them about the lawyer's fees. And they don't tell them that you can't negotiate. You can negotiate with the city. You can't negotiate with those guys. And that within a year, you're going to be in foreclosure. They don't tell you that. So they're misleading you when you get down there. They're telling you, oh, yes, the program, but don't worry. No, you should worry, because they're out to take your homes. So sorry. So I'm just, okay. So Okay, so we're gonna move on because we have still so much more to do and talk about. So just like with the tax liens and being able to control your homes, there was the issue of community plans. Community plans are something that has been going around for the last couple of decades, in which people are advocating that you need to be able to control your land and control, so let's engage in a community plan. And even recently, at the community board, there's been discussions about this. And Mr. Gay has an organization called Feast, who's been proposing to create a community plan right here in this neighborhood. But people need to be informed about community plans. And that's why we have Professor Angadi.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Great to be back here. I retired from teaching about 7, 8 years ago, but I'm still going. I taught urban planning, and I got into urban planning. I'm going to talk about how the first steps, because it relates to community planning. I got into it when I went to graduate school. It was at the height of the civil rights movement. And planners were typically not working in communities of color. And the war on poverty was going on. I was on the board of directors of a local war on poverty. Got involved through the civil rights movement. And so planning became a subject that people were interested in, because prior to that it was a small group of architects and designers who were interested in building, who worked to build things. But I was interested in community planning. When I went...
Put it closer.
Okay, oh, sorry. Okay. So I went to a planning school. I was on the board of directors of the local poverty organization, anti-poverty organization. I say this because when I'm going to talk about community planning in New York City, it has a lot to do with the civil rights movement. Because prior to the civil rights movement, urban planners and the architects who were working with the government were in what you might call an apolitical space. They were technicians. They would be simply there to help foster the healthy design and building communities. But the civil rights movement turned everything around. It's not about applying scientific methods to urban development. It's stopping displacement, because that's what was going on in the 60s and 70s. People were fighting displacement, and so I got into a program in urban planning because HUD was created, and there was finally some interest. There's finally some interest in addressing the problems of communities of color, low-income communities, Latino communities. And so in 1975, New York City created community boards. I was around then. I was one of my first teaching jobs. We were organizing for a different reform, a deeper reform, because what community boards did was try to pacify the lack of engagement and participation of low-income communities of color all over the city. So they said, okay, we're going to create 59 community boards, one in each district. And And so if you're wondering, what do? They have one of the lowest budget lines in the city. They have a very small staff that serves populations of up to 500,000. And they have a very minimal power. In 1975, the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure was created so that community boards and the borough presidents could have a say on land use changes, proposals to change zoning, proposals to create new developments. And I say this because when I hear all the complaints about community boards today, and there are many, I've worked with community boards for decades. The complaints go deep because they have very little power. And so you have to go back to the origin. This was a reform that was created because there were people demonstrating all over the city. The National Guard was called out. So community boards were going to give everybody a voice. Okay, so there are 59 community boards. Each one has all the members are appointed. No election. And they get appointed by elected officials. So you hear everybody complaining, well, community boards, they don't do anything, or they do the wrong things by rubber stamping proposals that come before them because they really don't have much of an alternative. They can't stop anything because the other entities that vote on these land use issues are the borough president, who's basically, appointed by the Democratic Party machine, and the City Planning Commission, which is under the control of the mayor. And then the City Council is the only hope, but there are 51 council people, and in your council district, if you want to kill a project, you have to convince enough of the other city council members to kill it. So it's very difficult for the city council people from your neighborhood to exercise a veto or to stop something that is universally unwanted in your neighborhood. I say this because I'm a strong supporter of community boards. Some of them actually are very sharp politically. Some members are very sharp. But it's an institution that was not set up to give people power. And so if you're going to get involved with the community board, you have to take the power. And so the other thing was community planning. There was a revision to the city charter in 1986, I believe, that empowered community boards to do plans for their own community that didn't depend necessarily on the technicians from the New York City Planning Department or any other government entity. You can do your own plan, and you present it to the community board for approval. The community board approves it, and then it goes to the borough president. The borough president approves it, and the city council and the mayor. This was another reform that was started by the civil rights movement. This was not something that came out of the heads of the city planning department. In fact, city planning department did everything possible. By the way, one of my greatest experiences was working 6 years with the New York City Planning Department. I learned it from inside the monster. they don't do planning. They follow the directions from City Hall, which are dictated by real estate. That's what it's all about.
Right on.
And so they don't do, so when it came to doing community plans, they said, oh, we can help you, but all they know really is the zoning regulations, which are ways of regulating developments that are proposed, and in order to be executed need to have a rezoning. So I was a strong supporter of community-based planning. I worked with environmental justice groups who latched on to community-based planning and in order to stop the siting of noxious facilities in their neighborhoods. They saw developing a community plan as a way to protect themselves against unwanted, unhealthy uses. But we got about 18, I think the last count, 18 community plans were finished and approved and sent to the city planning department. Now, in my deep heart, I totally support community planning. I think it can be a mechanism towards empowerment. But the way it's set up, it goes to the city planning department, they approve it, and then they file it away. They file it. Try to find it. Do they ever look at it? Do they ever? And the worst thing that happened to us was the head of city planning would say, but they're only advisory. But which I translate to mean they mean nothing. They're useless. So if you're going to do it, I think every community should have a plan. A plan is a political program. What are your priorities? What do you need what are the problems that need to be solved? It's not whether you need 4 stories or 5 stories. So, okay, I don't have much time, but Bloomberg's, just to say a word about Bloomberg, when he was mayor, the billionaire mayor decided that the solution of all our problems was development. Bring in more real estate money. Big real estate money. And he did, and he rezoned 40% of the land in the city to promote new development. But this is how zoning works, by the way. You can change the zoning to encourage new, upscale, high-rise development, or you can change the zoning to prevent it. And so Bloomberg rezoned 40% of the land in the city, and he took the prize parcels of land and neighborhoods that real estate investors really wanted, and he upzoned them so they could build more. And then he took the exclusive, mostly white neighborhoods that had good real estate and wanted to protect themselves, and he downzoned them to protect them. So that's how zoning works. You zone up to encourage new development, to make real estate developers successful, and you downzone it to protect the existing populations who contributed to your campaign. The final point was, after Bloomberg came de Blasio. And de Blasio, who maybe deep in his heart had this desire to support low-income African-American and Latino communities, decided that he wasn't going to do the upzoning for big downtown development like Bloomberg did. He's going to rezone your neighborhoods. So he took all the peripheral neighborhoods, East New York, parts of Queens that were black and brown, and rezoned them, and he got his ass kicked. And I'm happy to say I was part of that opposition, because it was rezoning to take neighborhoods somewhat like this, but more like East New York, who were on the, real estate was interested in it, but couldn't get it. So he wanted to rezone them. I'm happy to say we won many of those rezoning fights. Not all. And I was just asked to say one word about community land trust. I'm on the board.
Wait, we're going to do another one.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, that one.
I just wanted to say that one of those fights happened right here in 2014 when they were trying to rezone our community underneath the community plan. A lot of people in this room might remember that struggle and fight. We had protests, we had arrests, and we were successful. We had lawsuits and we were successful. And that's why you don't see towers all over the community. The towers that you do see are individual property owners where the city council person gave them permission. But a rezoning in the entire district would have looked like downtown Brooklyn. So if you look at downtown Brooklyn, you see all that massive amount of development. That's what they wanted to do here. So we were one of the first communities of color to stop a community plan underneath the de Blasio administration. And a lot of people in this room were responsible for that. We stopped that, that's an individual, but I'm talking about what they wanted to do was Flatbush Avenue. They wanted Washington Avenue, they wanted Bedford Avenue, they wanted Empire, they wanted Nostrand, they wanted Rogers. And the reason why you don't see tall towers here is because we fought that fight and we won. So we were one of the first communities of color to stop a massive rezoning that happened. So we should be proud of ourselves. And some of the people remember that. Who was in this community remember that fight? Okay, see, okay. They know we were fighting at the community board. We raising hell. I mean, you know, we did our thing. So it's important to remember your history and know what we've done. Okay, so now we're gonna move. We're gonna have one more presentation by Professor Ngati because there's been a lot of conversation about community land trust. Right? Again, and Mr. Gay, who is the Director of Community Affairs for Senator Myrie, has been proposing a community land trust in our community underneath a community plan. And we wanted people to know some basic facts about community land trust so that you understand when somebody's trying to do a scam on you, which he's trying to do, you understand some facts. Now, Professor Ngati is well known in the community land trust because he was a part of a major community land trust that was very successful in Manhattan. And I just wanted him to, again, explain to you some of the legal parameters and some of the steps that you have to take in order to truly have a community land trust. And also give you an explanation of what a community land trust is. So again, Professor Ngati.
Okay, I'm on the board of directors of the Cooper Square Community Land Trust. I've been on it for about 15 years. It was started by a group of tenants in the Lower East Side who fought off an urban renewal program that, where their buildings were going to be demolished and turned over to a big developer. They fought them for decades, and they won. And they got the city, and race had something to do with it because it was only until David Dinkins was elected mayor that they got the city to approve the transfer of these buildings to a land trust and the buildings to a co-op. That was a community co-op. The basic idea of a land trust is a separate entity owns the land and leases it to, could be a co-op, which is the case of Cooper Square, or it could be individual homeowners. And I know there's a group in East New York that's trying to organize something like this with homeowners. But the whole idea is you separate ownership of the land from the use on the land, from what's on the land. Now, there's a great deal of interest in it, and we have a number of bills before the City Council that so far haven't been able to be approved, that would give more official support and power to communities that want to start their own land trust. Land trust started in the after slavery, when farmers in Georgia, the first community land trust was created. Farmers in Georgia who did not own the land individually, could not, created a trust. And then the individual farmers would take parts of it and work that. That's how it started. There's land trusts for industry, for farming, and for housing. And the biggest land trust in the United States is in Bernie Sanders' Burlington, Vermont, when he was mayor. He started this. They own hundreds of units of housing. And they're single-family, two-family, three-family homes, mostly. It's in Vermont. It's not downtown New York. It's not the Lower East Side. So there are land trusts springing up in other parts of the world. There's a major land trust. A couple of years ago, I went to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. They're starting a land trust for people who are living without property rights in mountains outside the city of Rio, and can't get support from the government. So I believe in land trust. I think it can be a good thing, but they can also be scams, just like anything else. So you got to watch it. And I get approached all the time, we want to start a land trust. I say, okay, where's the land? Well, first of all, you got to have the land. You got to fight, and you got to fight for the land unless you can buy it, okay? So we have in New York City so much land that could be utilized to benefit communities, whether for housing or you can have it for industries, for small. There's actually a land trust being formed in Queens that is for small industries. If you're doing that, it's not Jamaica. No, it's not Jamaica. No, a lot of homeowners. That's right. No, this is near the waterfront.
Does that be far off? Could you please turn your phone off? Thank you.
I'm sorry, what?
Far off, you said the water, is far off the way?
There's actually one in Far Rockaway, which is, I think, mostly 1 and 2 family homes. Yeah.
But they become like community centers and stuff like that.
They could be for community centers.
When people were fighting for land trust when you first started, recreation never came up.
We're not going to be taking questions right now, but we're going to be questions, and we're going to go back and review the presentation. And I know it's a lot of information, but we're going to hold off on questions. So, are we finished? Okay. Okay, great. Oh, but do you know
Well, we still didn't know about scams, and I do know that there's been some scams where people are talking about creating land, community land trusts, and then trying to take the property from property owners. And instead of creating the trust, they're just saying transfer it over to me, and then I will put it into a trust. You don't transfer your property to somebody else, because it's the trust that's supposed to control, and the trust has obligations. When they are created, they have to be filtered through the Attorney General. They have to have legal nonprofit status. There's a lot of legal ramifications of creating a trust, because it's just not something that, you know, an entity can just come and do, because there are a lot of regulations around it. So if somebody is trying to convince you to put something into a trust, but give it to them first, and the trust is not even there, be wary of that, because that has been happening. In our community, there's been an idea that, oh, we could rezone the neighborhood, put up all these high-rises, and somehow some developer who owns the property is going to give us some land that they've been trying to upzone for the last decade, and then give it to us, and then all of a sudden we're going to have a community facility underneath a trust. Keep believing that one, right? So you got to be careful. So thank you so much. Now we're coming even closer to home, right? So,
Excuse me, what about the squatters?
well, again, we're holding off on questions. We have one more presentation, and we need to get through that presentation. When we've been talking about how cities and municipalities are doing a lot of these things to us, right? And organizing and perpetrating really the privatization, or taking our wealth to make other people wealthy. This is also happening in public-private partnerships that are starting to happen all over the city, where they're taking public land and they're privatizing it.
Yep.
And you might have been seeing it like where you see all of a sudden those cars, what is that, Lyft cars and share cars are taking up parking spaces. Have you been seeing that around there? They're literally allowing private companies to take over our public spaces. But they're also doing it underneath what we call open streets. And it's really closed streets where they're privatizing. And this has happened a lot over in North Crown Heights and CB8. And so we have Linda here, and she's going to be talking about that struggle, in which there's been a lot of streets that are being closed, and this is now about to happen here. They have come here. They are talking about closing Montgomery Street for an open street. They're talking about taking Lennox Road and removing, is that Lincoln Road? No, Lincoln Road. Lincoln Road, and talking about taking one of the lanes out of Lincoln Road and making it a one-way. I'm talking about the Lincoln Road between Flatbush Avenue and Ocean Avenue. You know that's a two-way street, right? They want to take out one whole directional lane, and they want to put a bike lane instead, right? And that's the other thing, like taking away private parking to put bike lanes in, so that people will not buy cars and then would have to be dependent upon these for-ride, for-share cars, rental cars, and this obviously empowers the real these entities, right? Because if you don't own your car and you have to rent a car, who makes money? They do, right? And so there's been this whole political environment, but I wanted to let you know that they're coming. And they also are talking about, if you live next to Sterling and Washington and Empire, you know that plaza, they're talking about commercializing that plaza as well. Starting from when they want to do Wednesday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. and just make it an entertainment venue where they're selling products. So this is what they're proposing. They're coming into our neighborhood, so you need to be prepared. But go ahead, Linda's going to go ahead and talk about her experiences and what they've done in their community, because they've been dealing with this a lot longer than we have. Thank you. Western Beach, yes. Yes, you guys know that about that plaza that's right there across the street, that's right off of Western Beach. It's very open. Yes, they're talking about doing that. That was a proposal that just came.
they're also talking about closing off Grand Army Plaza traffic. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see so many people here. It's very encouraging. My name is Linda. I'm just a regular neighbor from Prospect Heights. I started organizing my community with a bunch of other women and a couple men about 2 years ago because they put a bunch of barricades on our street, Underhill Avenue. Is anyone here familiar with the Vanderbilt and Underhill Avenue mess? Has anyone gotten stuck on Washington Avenue? Has anyone noticed that Fridays right now are clear and so are Sundays? That's because of us. That's because we all got together, like the people in this room, and we said no. And we got so many doors closed in our faces. We said, that's okay. We went to the next one, kicked that one open. Because what they are going to try to do is wear us down, right? Oh, it's not worth it. Let me go to my barbecue. Let me see my mom, you know, blah, blah. So what started as a couple barricades on Underhill, at the time I was going through some health challenges. I broke my ankle. Cabs wouldn't pick me up. I had to go around. I was like, let me go talk to the community board. I got passed all around the tables. I was like, all right, let me do a little petition. I got like 400 signatures on a petition. Let me go to my city council person, Crystal Hudson. Did everybody get this flyer? At the bottom, you will see paid for by Uber. Right here, not even hiding. Paid for by Uber. I don't know how much these mailings cost. You might have a better idea. $30,000. Now, why would Uber want Crystal Hudson in office? So we brought our petition to Crystal Hudson at a coffee with Crystal, and I went to give it to her. Mind you, I used to work for my state representative. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I'm a transplant. And I went to give it to her, and she said, don't give that to me. You have to give it to the mayor. And I was shocked, because she's my council person. I'm giving it to you. What do you mean I have to give it to somebody else? So that began the saga of, we tried to have community. She didn't want anything to do with it. She didn't want her hands on it. And one thing, I have to say that, you know, I'm chatty. So I don't mind walking around talking to people and knocking on doors and car windows and did you know this and did you know this and did you, and over and over and over and over, what I heard people in the community who grew up in the community say was, we kept this neighborhood going. When nobody else wanted to live here, when nobody else wanted to be here, we kept the buildings going, we planted the trees, we swept the, and now we're not even being allowed to participate in the decisions impacting our families, our parents, our children, and our futures. And that is by design. That is absolutely by design, because it's all about money, and we all know this. It's happening everywhere. It's not just Brooklyn, it's New Jersey. I hear this, that their Airbnb is pushing people out, and we can go in the weeds in that another meeting. But what we did was, we went to the community board. And while I appreciate the professors, the community board is a good resource if you all show up en masse and demand that they do something. But here's the problem. The people on the community board are appointed by the council members and the borough president.
That's right.
And the people on our community board, CB8, there are 5 people that I can think of off the top of my head that are organizers, members of the not-for-profit that runs the Vanderbilt Open Street and the Underhill programming, whatever that means. We haven't been able to figure it out. But they get hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now that funding got cut this year. But we were told that it was an all-volunteer organization and that everybody just loves this program and this is the beloved open street. And we started walking around and everybody's like, well, I don't like it, but I'm the only one. There's a lot of these only ones out there, right? So we had a meeting and we all got together and we all talked about our experience just like this group tonight. And we found that people of a certain age in New York City, y'all remember the shell game, right? There was a definite shell game going on, like don't look over here, look over here. And what we found out, we foiled the contract for the organization that was running the Vanderbilt Open Street, and they were getting $225,000 to run that program. So when you walk down Vanderbilt, there's not a lot of people hanging out there. Some of the people who do hang out, they make deliberate plans to be there and take photo ops and things like that, so, and they invite reporters. So it looks like it's really busy and popular. But in fact, it was actually impeding our local first responders. And here's where it got a little dangerous and really disappointing in our government. I rang the bell at the firehouses. And I was like, what do you guys think? And I talked to the cops. I was like, what do you guys think? And they were livid. They were really angry. And they told me that we are being delayed. We have logs. One firefighter, who I can repeat his story because he has since retired, told me that they had a baby that stopped breathing and that they were delayed getting to this child. They got to the child, they managed to resuscitate the child, but they were so angry that they told the parents, you should sue the city. So we wrote to our council person about that, and basically we were told, well, Borough Command says it's okay. So then I wrote to Joanne Ariola, who is the chairwoman for Fire and EMS for City Council. And she said, what are you talking about? If the firefighters don't want it, you shouldn't do it. They're professionals, right? We should be listening to them, right? That's what I thought. So she said that she was going to have a meeting in our district, and she wanted to see Underhill before they changed it, and she was going to have a hearing. All of a sudden, that got shut down. Something happened behind the scenes. We're not entirely sure what. Our suspicion is that our council person said, how dare you come into my district? This is my purview. We don't know that for sure. But what Joanne Ariola did was she introduced a bill to City Council called 104A. And this just passed. Our council person, Crystal Hudson, voted against it, even though we asked her to vote for it twice. And what 104A says is that any street changes, any bike lanes, any open streets, the local firehouses have to be talked to and sit down, and then their safety data has to go to the community board to be made public to you and me. Why would she vote against that? You know, this is people's lives and property that we're dealing with, and it's also not safe for the firefighters for obvious reasons. So I know that you guys have some open streets coming your way. I just want to make sure that you're very aware that you can demand your local firehouses. That would be the engine, the ladder, the battalion, and the rescue. The rescue is like the special forces troop that comes in. So what we did was we organized our first responders. We got 150 local NYPD and FDNY members to sign our petition to stop the open street and the Underhill. Do you know how hard it is to get cops to sign on officially to anything? You know, the politics in the FDNY, it's really, they're under a lot of pressure to not talk to us at all. But they signed it, detective, sergeant, lieutenant, you know, totally ignored by our council person. We ended up getting a meeting with the mayor. And when we got a meeting with the mayor, he actually listened to us. And he made some changes behind the scenes. So that is why he basically defunded the open street. So that is why we now only have Saturday. But our council person gave them $37,000 of discretionary funding. So, you know, I have to just say that in order to get into office, it costs a lot of money, which is the unfortunate thing about our system. And so some politicians get into this mindset of, I need this much money to win, and I need this many of these to win, and they get stuck in this circular pattern of, well, now I'm kind of stuck having to do what these people want because I won't be in office. And that's not always the case. There are lots of people that got into office without that. But I really encourage everybody here to call your council person. I'm willing to give you all her cell phone if you want to take out your phones. I will give you her number if you have pens. But what else should I say about open streets? So open streets, if they're coming here, it's a very circular, opaque, hard to understand process. The community partner can be a not-for-profit, it could be a group of parents, it could be a school, well, it could be a school, but it could be a church. And then they have to get 3 letters of support from the community, and that can be a landlord, that could be anybody. And then they have to submit their application to the DOT approves it, and then they open it to public comment. So after the application is already approved, then you can make your public comments. We're not sure what they do with them, but we think they just kind of go in the garbage, right? So the answer to all of this is for everybody to get loud, everybody to organize your 3 friends, and everybody, please, you have to vote in June. There are a couple people running against our council person, Deanne Ashman, Hector Robertson, Kenny Lever. Do your research, because we went through a lot to get these changes made for our community, and it should not have been that hard. We should not have had to fight that hard for ambulances to get through our neighborhood, for people to be able to get to church, for Mitchell's Soul Food, a business that opened in 1969. We had to fight so hard to keep them from being closed because they are mostly patronized on Sundays by people who go to church, and they couldn't get to them. So why was it so hard? Because we didn't have adequate representation. So everybody needs to call your representative, Crystal Hudson, and tell her what you expect from her. And if she's not going to do it, you need to vote her out. And who's willing to run in the next cycle in this room? Start planning your... No, not me. Not me. But everybody is ready? Crystal Hudson's cell phone number is 917. Everybody ready? Everybody got your pen? And let's all make a plan to call her tomorrow. How many people here have heard of MTOPP? Nobody, right? 1. MTOPP is a community-driven plan to rezone Atlantic Avenue for high-rises. It passed through committee last Monday. We had a meeting about it today. They pulled a fast one on our community board. The community board rescinded their approval for it because some of the conditions for deeply affordable housing were removed. Crystal Hudson and Chiose came to the community board a couple weeks ago and they said, we need a compromise. You need to put the higher income level and the lower income level together, and that way we can get more units or whatever it is they told them. And then they went to city council and they pulled out the
else to say yes, and then you have an open street sitting on your block, or a closed street sitting on your block, and now you're entertaining the entire neighborhood for the weekend, from Friday to Sunday. I don't know how many people want that on Montgomery Street, but that's what's coming if you do not stay involved.
Mr. Gay withdrew his application.
You know. Yes, but it doesn't mean that he can't come back with another application, or someone else can't come with another application. Don't think that they are giving up on our community just because one application got done. And the only reason why Mr. Gay got his application withdrew is because MTOPP, we were all over him. We found out all kinds of things about this man, unlawful things that he was doing, and we filed complaints about that unlawfulness. That might be somebody who comes along and does it legally. It doesn't take much. So you have to stay involved. Okay, so I'm going to allow you guys to make one more comment at the end. He is, yes, while he was working for Myrie, yes, he did, and we have the proof. Okay, and don't forget, Senator Myrie is running for the mayor. And they have been after our community for over a decade because we live next to the park, because we live next to the garden, because we live next to the museum, because we have transit, because we have the 2 train and the 5 train and the B train and the S train. All those assets that they didn't care about 30 years ago, right? When they said, oh, Crown Heights, Flatbush, okay? Now all of a sudden, oh, we love it. We love being here. You're right across the street from the park. Oh, we love it. You can walk to the park, you can walk to the garden. You can get on this train and that train and this train and that. They've been wanting us for over a decade. And the only reason why they don't have us is because the people in this room have been stopping it. And I'll thank them at the end. But can you stand up, people? People from MTOPP, stand up. It's not a lot of us. Come on, stand up.
Not just MTOPP.
No.
These three workers.
And other people, come on. People who have been fighting, who have come out, who have sat there and, come on.
People are living in the neighborhood.
There's not a lot of people. But I'm telling you, we've lost a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people sit up in that.
We lost a lot of people. A lot of people have passed. A lot of people have gotten sick. We all got graves. Who's staying alive forever? You know, you know how much grade I got for the last 10 years? Okay, we're getting older. We need young people coming in and taking over this mantle.
More young people.
You know, we need help. We need help, and you need to be helping us. We need help. But we're going to talk about how you can help us later, so you stick around. Okay.
That combo.
What if it's water in the neighborhood? That's the problem.
So, wait. So what we're going to do, lastly, we want to remind people of who we are. Because a lot of people are new in this community. They don't know the history of MTOPP. You know, I go to the community boards and everybody like hates me. Because when I see a politician, I boo them. You know, I just don't understand why I want a politician who does nothing for me and works against me. Why should I clap for them? Excuse me? I should be able to boo my elected official when they show up. They don't like it. Said I'm causing trouble. Well, yeah, I have been known to cause trouble. Okay, but you need to get involved. You gotta get involved, people. You gotta come out, you gotta get involved because they are coming for our neighborhood. And they've been doing it, and they're still trying to do it. Okay, so LaShawn is a political activist in the neighborhood, and she's going to go ahead and talk about MTOPP and a little bit of what we've done over the last decade.
Hello, good night. My name is LaShawn Ellis, and I have been working with MTOPP, Movement to Protect the People, for the past, I think I'm like 10 years, not 11, right? 10 years. And I mean, you can see, I'm not going to go too long because we're short on time, but we have, we were able to stop the rezoning of this community. We had a lot of protests at the community board meetings. I mean, Professor Angotti was saying, you know, there's not a lot of power in community boards, and we know this, but where there is a little bit of power, you have to take it, because it's not going to be given to you. And that's exactly what we did. We made a lot of noise. You know, some people didn't like it. It was a little unsavory. But, you know, what's being done to us is not very savory. So if you're not going to treat us the way we should be treated or we deserve to be treated, we are not going to treat you that way either. So, you know, it requires a lot of, you know, loud, raucous behavior. We were able to stop that rezoning. We had a very long battle with the developments that are up, the two developments on Montgomery between Franklin and Washington, and then the other one that is located on Carroll Street. We had those developers in court for about 3 years. Is it 3 years? We won in the lower courts. This was all pro se. It was our little law firm, you know, in my house, and Alicia's house, and Julia's house, and Nicola's house, and we did this all ourselves at no cost in terms of attorney's fees, but it did cost money, and it came from the people, which is why we ask for donations, because paper isn't cheap, ink isn't cheap. Filing isn't cheap. Filing is very expensive. Filing paperwork as a pro se litigant is pricey. But we were able to cost those developers a whole lot of money. A whole lot of money. So we won in the lower courts, which is awesome. But then, of course, they took us back, and we did not win in the upper courts. So that is why you see those buildings. But you notice how long it took. You notice that their designs changed. They had to do a lot of switching up quickly because we cost them a lot of money. The other thing that stopped was the development on Nostrand. Those folks wanted to apply for a rezoning, but they didn't. Nostrum between Empire and Sullivan. Well, I guess it's really between Montgomery. They didn't apply, and that was because of our lawsuit against the Franklin Avenue development, because they were like, whoa, we're not going to go through that. We'll just build as of right. So even though it may seem like we don't win in the courts, we win in the streets. And people know about us. Developers know about the work that MTOPP has done in the community, and they think twice before applying for these rezonings. Because we may not be able to, skirt all these silly, with DCP and all the nonsense, but we can hit them where it hurts in the pocket. And they'll maybe think twice before coming here. We also stopped the tower that was to go up with the Spice Factory. And that was, again, we filed another lawsuit against those guys, and it's not going to be 48 stories. So things are, still go up, but it looks very differently because we put up resistance. So that will not be a 48-story tower. It's just 10, is it 10 stories?
1 is 10 and 1 is 7.
10 and 7, so that's a way different. So, yeah, hold that, and we'll get to it. Don't forget. I'll remember that. But, a lot of these applications don't get, stopped. But we put up a really good fight. There's also a development coming up on Empire and McKeever. And this is why we're really pushing against Crystal Hudson, because she has the power to stop this. Those towers came up under Lori Cumbo. This is now Crystal Hudson's legacy. And, we know Crystal Hudson learned from Lori Cumbo, right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She can stop this. She can stop it. She can stop it. She's the city council member for our district. But we already know that she won't stop it because these guys are paying her bills.
Yes.
The developers are paying her bills. So we are doing everything in our power to try to get her out. To get her out.
Get her out.
Because she's not working for us. And we do not want this development. It will block sunlight. It will make the cost of living more expensive for people who are living here. Traffic. Just a complete, and it will start a domino effect. So they're calling this, it's just one, it's a spot rezoning. But once they see that they can come in here and break the zoning of Empire Boulevard, that's the end. That's the end. They want 13, I believe. They want 15 stories, and it's front and back. So it would be a complete change, because remember, Empire Boulevard is the commercial corridor. The only buildings that are there that are grandfathered in that have the apartments on the front facing of Empire, but the residential is only supposed to be on Sullivan. They want it to be on Sullivan and Empire. So it would be a complete rezoning and then to go up 15 stories. So it's McKeever between Sullivan and Empire.
So the businesses want the commercial, want that building.
Well, it would still be business underneath. You know how they do business underneath and then apartments above. So here, I'll finish up so we can go to questions. But you guys can read all that other stuff there. We plan to file a lawsuit against this developer if we don't. If Crystal Hudson does not. I mean, they're voting on it today. Didn't they vote on it today? Yes. So, and was I didn't pay attention because I'm sure they passed it, right? They passed it. So, yeah, we're really trying to get Crystal Hudson out. That's what we're working on right now. But I'm going to finish up. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, LaShawn. We have one last thing, and we have some actions for you guys to do. Can you turn to that last page? Okay. Can you do me a favor and open up your phone? How many people know how to do QR codes? Okay, a lot of people know how to do it. Okay, so we're going to practice. Right up at the top, we're going to ask you to open up your phone, and we're going to ask you to click on that link. There's no internet here? There's no internet? There's no cell service. There's no? Oh, you gotta sign on, there is, you gotta sign on. Okay, so, then you have homework. I used to be a kindergarten teacher. Then you have homework. Please take the time to do that QR code. It's really simple. You just click on it and you're sending a letter. Because what's happening in our community board is that all of our old community board members who were on the board before Borough President Reynoso came into power have been removed, except for 2. Every last one of these community board members who knew about our struggle, who had been educated about what was happening in the neighborhood, who knew all the scams and all the stuff, all the struggles we've been through over the last decade, they are gone from the community board. Reynoso just appointed 18 new community board members, brand new, okay? When we asked last year, when he did it again that time, put a whole bunch of new ones. We said, well, who are these people? You know what they told me? They said, we don't have that information. We don't know who they are. We just have their contact information. But we don't know where they work. We don't know what affiliations they have. We don't know anything about them. Now, remember, a lot of these people are now coming from these special interest groups. Open New York, Rebney, the mayor's office. Okay? These are the ones that we investigated, but there's a whole lot that we didn't investigate. And when we asked for this stuff, we didn't get it. So we're now in court. A year later, we still don't know who's on our community board. And now this month, I just went to a community board meeting last week. Tuesday. Two days ago. I said, well, there's 18 new board members. Who are they?
And they weren't there.
They said, all we have is their names. We don't have anything else about them. We don't know where they work. We don't know what special interests they have. We don't know anything about them. How can you be a representative in a community that represents us, right? These are legal people who have been appointed to represent you on the community board by law, and you don't know who they are. And they claim they don't know anything. This is what Reynoso and Fred Baptiste, who's in the back right there, who's the chair, is telling the community that you can't find out anything about the board members. He should be ashamed. It should be ashamed. Because now we don't know who these people are. Okay. This is what they do to us. This is how they play us. Because they know my group is on top of them. My group will let you know what's going on. So please stay involved. You put down your contact information. Please watch out for those emails. We're asking people today to sign up and do work for us. We're asking you, do you have time to do some flyering? Do you have time to go to an event? Do you have time to talk to your neighbor and knock on doors? Do you have time to come to a community board when we send out a notice and say, you must come? Because if you don't come, they will do whatever they want to do. When you come and you fill up a meeting, they listen to you. When I by myself, they say, shut up, Miss Boyd. Be quiet. We're not paying attention to you. But they can't do that if I have 10 people standing with me. 20 people standing. You gotta stand up, people. You gotta stand up. So please take this, and then we need donations. There was also another link. We need money. We don't get money from anybody. We don't take money from developers. We don't take money from politicians, because we don't want anybody telling us what we need to say and do. Okay? We are completely, absolutely independent. But this stuff costs. We spent over $1,500 for flyers. Okay? It costs. Please help us out. Please give whatever you want. Whatever you can give us. We're asking for monthly donations as low as $10 a month. Or we're asking for, whatever you can give us. Please, it's appreciated. We have flyers back there. If you want to help us, start handing out these flyers. Just go to your neighbors and hand out flyers. We got dirty money flyers. Where's that dirty money flyer? I love that one. On Crystal Hudson. There it is. Dirty money flyer. Take that dirty money flyer. That's telling people what Crystal is getting and why she's not supporting us. You gotta give information, please. We have flyers back there. If you want to take flyers, you want to hand them out, you want to give them to your neighbor, please do that. Please get involved. Okay, so we're gonna let the presenters have one more comment. There's a few that wanted to have one more comment, and then we're gonna open it up to the floor, please.
I just wanted to also add to Linda's amazing work, and is that there is actually a lawsuit against the city for open and closed streets, because open and closed streets, what I want to add is not that there's a lawsuit, but it violates the American Disability Act. When you close the street, any one of you with a hip replacement, knee replacement, a veteran, you know, your neighbors, so it is important that everything Alicia says, to be vigilant about opposing this, because these closed streets not only shut down the grid for someone trying to deliver a baby, but it shuts down the grid for someone trying to get to an emergency room, or to a doctor, or to dialysis. So it really needs to be stopped. And the second thing I wanted to just say really, really quickly is that, you know, I would hope at some point we get to another conversation about, as you know, the difference between affordable housing and home ownership. Because there are homeowners who need your support, who unfortunately have been losing their homes to foreclosures for the past 10 years, deed and equity theft. And it's very comfortable for the politicians to continue to have a conversation about affordable housing and a debate about affordable housing, low income, deeply affordable, and that pushes aside under the rug the fact that we have lost more than half of black home ownership all across the city, but especially in Brooklyn, especially to the upzone gentrified neighborhoods, to foreclosures following the subprime industry. And your neighbors in that regard, they're living in silence, they're living in pain, and they need your support.
Can people form a line over here so that they can ask questions?
And I wanted to say, I forgot one thing, that a lot of these street redesigns, these bike boulevards, you know, on the surface they seem like, oh, it's just kind of something crazy, but these are also, by design, going to move people out of the neighborhood. Because a lot of people in my neighborhood are older. We have 4 people on my block who are 80, 2 on the next block who are 100 and 90 and 86, and some of them have been, their daughters and their sons can't get to them anymore. They're being isolated. They can't visit their grandchildren because they can't park, and their family can't come in on the weekends and visit them. So then what happens? Oh, Mom, you know, like, why don't you come live with me, sell the house? Oh, Dad, you know, it's too hard to get here. Why don't you sell the house? And one part of AMA you all should be very aware of, because it's going under the radar, is they want to move the B65 bus on Bergen and Dean. We ran a report, there were 69,000 senior and disabled swipes on that line last year. And as you all know, the C line, none of those stations have elevators. So if you're a senior or you are disabled and you're dependent on that bus line, where are you going to go? But they want to make it a bike boulevard, like they did to Underhill, because they're building this, you know, network for City Bike. Because if you can't get the bus, you're going to take City Bike, whatever. And the other thing I just wanted to say is the reason that we won was because there were a lot of us that stuck together. It's not just me. We're a very large group too. I'm just the one talking tonight. But I want to just let you know that there's a lot of money involved, because they came after us and our businesses. They left businesses 1-star reviews, trying to lower their ratings on Yelp so people wouldn't go there. They put my photo and my address online. They do a lot of really intimidating things, but if there are a lot of you together, one of our restaurants, they put 10 1-star reviews, so we put 20 5-star reviews. You know, like, you have to stick together, and you have to talk to each other, and you have to work together.
Okay, Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the church. Hello, this is a gentleman. Richard, stand up. He is really our hero here. Letting us be here, letting us organize. I want to thank the members of my team. MTOPP, come on. LaShawn, Nicola, Julia, Tara, who else is here? Alicia. And all the people who show up. There's so many people who do come out to these meetings, so please keep coming out. You're on our mailing list, please come out. Now we're asking people not to editorialize, we're asking for